Okay, I think it's time. Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. It's January 8th, 2026. Welcome to tonight's zoning examiner's public hearing. Yes.
They may be trying to enter the front entrance. They want to come in the side entrance right here. Yep.
Yes. That's okay. So we have two cases scheduled for the public hearing tonight. As zoning examiner, I conduct rezoning hearings and special exception hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which is sent to the mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My reports will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application or special exception application, the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence and testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I'll also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded. When I call on you to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone and begin your testimony by stating your name and your address. I think there are cards in front there for you to sign in, and at some point we'll get those to me. Okay, you have them here already. Okay. So for rezoning cases and special exceptions, I will complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the public hearing is closed. I will then prepare a final report, which will be issued 14 days after the public hearing is closed. If you would like to receive a copy of any of my recommendations or reports, and you're not listed as a party of record on one of these cases, party of record could be somebody who's an applicant or who's received public notice. If you want to see that report, you can email, this is one word, Tucson Rezoning at TucsonAZ, that's one word, .gov, or call the City of Tucson's Planning and Development Services Department. Copies will also be available from the Planning and Development Services Department website. My final report will include recommendations for the rezoning and special exception and will be sent to Mayor and Council for the scheduled public hearing. Mayor and Council will then vote on the matter on my recommendation, along with other factors that they take into consideration. Okay. For those who plan to speak tonight, I would request that you stand or sit and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. So with that, I believe we are ready. And John, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yes, for anybody who's parked in the El Presidio parking garage, which is the one out here, just to let you know that garage closes at 8. So just to let you know that. You should have time, but I just want to make sure.
Okay. So with that, I will announce the first case. Case TP-ENT-0725-00012, Desert Christian Academy, Special Exception, 1300 North Prudence Road, Ward 2. Staff report.
Thank you. So this is a special exception land use request by Lazarus and Sylvan on behalf of the property owner Desert Christian High School to extend hours of operation for the existing education use beyond 7 p.m. and for the installation of lighting to the existing football field and track. The subject location is 7500 East Block of Speedway Boulevard, about 600 feet north of the right-of-way. The elementary and secondary use in the RX1 zone is subject to use-specific standards limiting hours of operation to no later than 7 p.m. Approving hours of operation past 7 p.m. requires the approval through the zoning examiner special exception procedure. The project is located within Plan Tucson and the Pantano East Area Plan. It is supported by Plan Tucson policy, supporting lighting design that follows the outdoor lighting code, minimizing disruptive light pollution in the surrounding environment, and supports developments informed by engagement from surrounding communities and the investment in maintenance, enhancement, and expansion of sports and recreational facilities and outdoor gathering spaces, making them destination worthy and reflective of Tucson's cultural heritage and desert environment. And facilities that improve the physical, mental, and social health outcomes for community members through parks and rec activities. The proposed special exception will allow indoor activities within the main school building to occur on any day of the week ending no later than 10 p.m. It would allow no more than 5 regular season football games, plus no more than 2 playoff games, if any, to conclude by 10 p.m. All other athletic field events would conclude by 8 p.m. The request includes a proposal to install lighting around the football field and track to support the extended hours of operation during athletic events. The proposed light poles are 90 feet in height, which allow the lights to be more downward directed and shielded to minimize light trespass into adjacent properties. They will also be automated to ensure lighting is cut off when the fields are not in use. Site circulation is not going to change from previously approved design package. Desert Christian High School will require parking for athletic events to be through the main entrance off Speedway Boulevard for Desert Christian High School. That will close the alley on Fleming. And to that note, I believe they have some other arrangements which I'll cover in their presentation. Staff finds the proposal to be in compliance with all other use-specific standards and the request to be consistent with policy direction in Plan Tucson and the Pantano East Area Plan. Plan amendment wouldn't be required. Subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions, approval of the requested special exception is appropriate, and I understand the applicant has some updated preliminary conditions based on feedback from the neighbors. And I'll, if they would like to present, this would be the time.
Okay, so the applicant, you're prepared to present, I assume. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mazzacco. So good evening, Mr. Mazzacco, staff, Rory Juneman, Lazarus and Sylvan, 5983 East Grant Road, representing Desert Christian Schools. I do want to note on the agenda, it was said Desert Christian Academy. It's actually Desert Christian Schools, just for a minor correction there. With me tonight from Desert Christian is Jerry Bowen, who's the interim head of schools. Aaron Jansen is the COO for the school. Chris Lindstrom's the CFO. Also, John Abney is with us from Musco. He's our lighting consultant. I'm going to have him come up and do a part of the presentation related to lighting. And then Jackson Cassidy is with me from Lazarus and Sylvan. I got it. This is a first. Let me see here. Is somebody running this?
Yeah, we're working on getting
Okay.
that
All right.
screened right now.
All right. Well, okay, perfect. All right. Thank you. So as Mr. Slater said, the property's on Speedway, just a little bit east of the Kolb Speedway intersection, about a mile. The school was founded at a different location in the mid-90s, but it moved into this area over at El Camino Church in the mid-90s, and then it moved to the current location in 2001. So the school's been there for about 25 years. It's really an integral part of the area. For the most part, it's been a high school, but in the last few years, they have added junior high to the campus. There's about 320 total students between junior high and high school. So it's a relatively, I mean, it's a small school. They could go to about 400 students, but they really don't have a lot of room to grow. The size of the school is really, today is really what it's going to be. From a sports standpoint, they play in Division II out of 6 divisions in Arizona. but they actually, for their size, they should be in Division I. They just chose to play in Division II because they don't have to travel as much. There's more Tucson teams that they can play in Division II instead of Division I. The background for the property, the athletic fields have only been there for a couple of years. This is their the first full season, their second season for football. Prior to that, the land where the athletic fields are was city owned. It was a city environmental services, trash kind of maintenance yard and storage area. And there were some other things, some IT functions there. But for the long term, it has been really more of an industrial use area. This photo is from 2008. It shows it kind of in its heyday of this industrial use, a lot of trash trucks, a lot of cars. But over the last few years that the city owned it, it had basically become kind of defunct. The city wasn't using it for anything and they didn't need it. So it was basically surplus property. Desert Christian saw it as a potential place to expand for athletic fields. One of Desert Christian's founders actually owned an office complex at Broadway and Pantano that he was looking to sell. And so there was just this good timing, kind of a synergy where we were able to do a land exchange with the city, where the city got the Broadway Pantano office, which is now the new Ward 2 office buildings, and then there's some other city functions there. And Desert Christian got this property. That transaction closed in 2003, and from there, Desert Christian was able to complete the fields and to what it is today, kind of seen on the right. One component of that land exchange, I think, is relevant, or at least interesting, in that that land exchange requires that Desert Christian provide public access during the times that it's not using the athletic facilities for the school. They can use those for public access. We've been working with the city attorney's office on an access agreement, a park agreement, essentially. For a while, it's not gone as fast as we'd hoped. We hope to get that completed in this quarter or next quarter. But at that point, then there would be pedestrian access for residents that live around the area to the athletic fields. And we see that as a benefit. So I just want to make sure to point out that this land was really, at least in the recent history, has never been open space. It has been really kind of more of an industrial use. And I think the use that Desert Christian has replaced that with is a lot more compatible with the residential around it. Current zoning, RX1 03, as Mr. Slater said, it permits educational uses, but it does have an hours of operation limit that runs from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's really why we're here. We're here to ask for a little bit of an extension on that time in the evening to allow for athletic field use. They went through one season, realized they couldn't really do that. And so that's really why we're here. The site plan shows the 4 light poles. That's really the only change that's going to happen because of this. The field, at least for this phase, is fully built out. Those 4 light poles will really be the only construction. From the buildings, the homes to the north, it's about 250 feet to those light stands. To the east, it's about 330 feet. To the east is really where we've put all of our focus for the conditions and our negotiations. Samprisi Estates is a townhouse complex there. They have been the ones that have engaged us the most, and we've had multiple meetings with them that I'll walk through. The neighbors to the north haven't really, we haven't heard from them, and so we haven't had a lot of discussions with them. And then the other to the south and to the west, we've had really no contact with them. So our efforts really have been focused on Samprisi Estates. So that neighborhood outreach started back in May. We had our original neighborhood meeting, had about 25, 30 people show up. Spirited meeting. They provided us with a lot of feedback, a lot of issues. The main ones are on the right hand of the slide: lighting, traffic, noise. There's an easement there that I'll talk about. public access, property values, things like that were the main issues. We had intended to move forward a little bit faster, but about a month after our first neighborhood meeting, the head of school at that time left for a job out of state. And so that really sort of put us a little bit on a hold for moving forward with this. We did our original submittal on July 15th to meet the UDC timing requirements, but we also requested a waiver from the 70-day hearing requirement so we could have time to kind of work through this case with the neighbors. We knew from the original neighborhood meeting we needed to do that. So in August, we had our first meeting with San Parisi Estates Board, went through some of ideas on conditions, listened again to their concerns. And from that meeting, we were able to draft and revise our application to include what I think is a pretty robust set of conditions that we were agreeable at that time. We submitted that in November. On December 4th, we had a second meeting with the board from San Parisi, walked through those conditions, had some changes to those, some not a lot of change. I think 5 conditions were changed, but we've provided you a red line of that earlier this week, and I'll walk through some of those as well. With that, I'd like to walk through some of these issues and kind of how we've addressed those, if that's okay.
All right.
All right. Regarding lighting, the first thing that we did is we removed the lighting on the softball fields and the pickleball courts. These are the functions on the property that are closest to San Parisi Estates. So we were agreeable to not have softball field lighting and not have the pickleball court lighting. Really, the crux of this whole case revolves around hours of operation. And so what we've done is to pretty strictly limit our hours. Really all athletic field events, and that doesn't mean just athletic events, it's any event that's on the field needs to conclude by 8 p.m. Except for football, which is 5 games a year. If they're good, they'll have a playoff game or 2. But really it's 5 games a year that can go till 10 o'clock because heat in the early season and just sort of tradition, football games typically start at 7 p.m. So we're requesting a little bit later on those 5 to maybe 7 nights. And then no school athletic events. Athletic events could be held on Sundays, but we could have things like occasionally they'll have, and this last year, a church has to have an Easter service outside. So things like that would be allowed. But anything that happened on a Sunday would have to end at dusk. So I want to stop and just sort of highlight that this request throughout most of the year to extend to 8 p.m. is just 1 hour longer than the code required 7 p.m. So I think our request is we've narrowed it to as much as we can. But then when you consider the amount of events that are actually going to be held after 7 p.m., I think that's really important to note. The football field is the only thing that's going to be lit. There's 3 sports that use that: football, track, and soccer. Football has 5 to 7 games. Soccer has 10 regular season games and maybe 2 playoff games, so potentially 12 total. And track may have 1 track meet a year. So that equals 20 days or 20 evenings where where the events could be held. So not only is our request small from an hour standpoint, just mostly asking for a 1 hour increase. The events that are going to be held throughout the year are going to be very limited. 20 nights likely throughout the year. That's essentially about 5.5% of the days of a year where we would have events to be held. So again, I think I just want to emphasize the small nature of the request. So regarding lighting, I think what's critical is it will be outdoor lighting compliant and fully shielded. One thing that I think was important to stress is, and we've brought in John, from Musco, who's our lighting consultant. I'd like him to walk through the next couple of slides just to talk about the LED technology and how it has really minimize the impact of field lights on surrounding areas, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is John Abney with Musco Sports Lighting, 6006 North 133rd Drive in Litchfield Park, Arizona is my address. Thrilled to be here talking to the board and on behalf of the school. Been here with Musco doing all the lights in Arizona for 25 years now. The 25, 30 years ago, when you heard that lights were going to go into your neighborhood, it was a pretty scary event. This was the main light source, the good old metal halide lamp at 1500 watts. Literally 25% of the light generated by this got onto the field. The other 75% of light was spill, sky glow into the skies and into the neighborhoods. Now, 10 years ago, the LED lights were perfected and strong enough to replace metal halide. We can now get twice as much light out of a fixture with half the power. So the power savings has been huge. But the other thing that LED allows us to do is pinpoint accuracy on aiming. And because it's such a smaller light source, we're able to fully shield it for the first time. So I brought one of our actual fixtures, wanted to kind of show you what the science is. We've got a lot of nice aerial shots. We don't Photoshop anything. That'd be too easy. But going from that giant football-sized light bulb to these tiny LEDs with optics over them, you know, the size of less than a marble, is what gives you that pinpoint accuracy. But LED is still a very bright light source. It's twice as bright as our previous light source. So the physical shielding, figuring out the structure to physically shield those lights when they're at the right aiming angles from those taller poles, aimed down at the field, nobody in the neighborhood, nobody within 100 feet of that field will see any of the light source. So we've been thrilled with the results. Been able to replace about 40 of the 103 old fields in Tucson so far. We're doing 4 or 5 projects for Pima County and Tucson every year. One of the ones on the books for this next year is Udall Park, that is right next to the school, just to the north of the school there, will become fully shielded. It'll go from glare that you can see for miles to glare that you can't even see from the bleachers in the football field. So that kind of science, proud to say it allows us to be the only manufacturer that's been approved by the International Dark Sky Community Friendly Lighting Certification. The first park to do that was down here in Sahuarita. They brought scientists and astronomers from all over the world to see that. And they said, yeah, we can finally get behind sports lighting as an actual dark sky lighting fixture. Been thrilled to Sedona, Flagstaff, Apache Junction, all dark sky cities have been thrilled with the results from the fully shielded LED fixtures. Happy to answer any questions about any of the technology. As I said, that's actually somebody else's LEDs. If you don't shield them, if you don't do it right, then they can be a bad glare source. Musco's been doing it for 50 years, and we're really proud of the heritage of doing it right. It's a fully adjustable fixture, so if there's ever an issue, if there's ever a neighbor that sees some pinpoint of glare coming towards their house, fully adjustable. We're a custom shop made in Iowa. We can add side shields, anything we need to make sure that it's a perfect solution for the school and for the neighbors.
So, Mr. Abney, you're very aware of the outdoor lighting code from here. And there's a specific section called recreational facilities, and you're aware of how that works. And what I'm hearing is you plan to be in full compliance with that.
Full compliance with that code. Yes, we made a lot of recommendations to get that code written.
Okay.
So we'll be in full compliance with it. Thank you.
It's the first hearing where I've had show and tell. One just anecdote. Not too long ago, I was driving down 6 by Tucson High, driven by there hundreds of times when the lights are on and they always seem bright. I think it was Musco that just replaced those lights with these new LED lights. And frankly, I was shocked at how much of a difference it made. And I was very relieved because we had these pictures and I was kind of like, I hope these are accurate. And frankly, what I saw in person at that field made me very comfortable with, with what we're saying tonight about the light spillover. It was pretty amazing. So you might have seen that in some of the fields around South Point. I know had recently done that. So, okay, moving on to parking, circulations, and easement. These are three other issues that we heard from Samprezi Estates that they had concerns with. What I'd like to do, instead of just going through a list, I put in this map because I think it's a little bit easier to explain these visually. So the first thing I want to point out is the Desert Christian's parking is in two places. On this map, the big P in the middle is their primary parking lot that fronts Speedway, and it's accessed by Prudence and by the curb cut right there on Speed that goes into the school. The second parking lot was built with the fields, which is up by the fields. It's a smaller P that's kind of a little bit to the north. The way that those connect is through an internal access lane that is fully enclosed within the property. So to get to that internal parking lot, you go through the property. You don't go through any public roads. Now, on the east side of that secondary lot is a connection to Fremming, which is a public road, and Fremming runs along along Samprezi Estates properties and the fire station that's just south of our property. And Fremming is that yellow arrow there. Now the school, and I think this happened before even the athletics fields came along, but the school has back kind of overflow parking agreements with El Camino Baptist to the east. It's a little under 1,000 feet from the school, and then Desert Hope Lutherans to the south. So when the school has had activities that maybe are going to stress their parking limits, they've been able to have those two lots as overflow, and they're both easy to get to for anybody that's visiting. So that's been in place. What this case allowed us to do is to hear from Samprezi about some of their concerns related to the athletic fields, but also some other things, and we've addressed those in some of the conditions. The first is that not related to the athletic fields, but Samprezi was concerned that students may be parking in that north overflow or the north secondary lot, and they didn't want students going down Fremming before and after school, just because kids can sometimes not be the best drivers. So what the high school has done is make that northern lot teacher and staff only. And so students must park in the lot that's closest to Speedway and have direct access to Speedway from Prudence or from their parking lot. So that was a request that wasn't a problem to implement. Now, regarding the athletic games, we've done a couple things. One, we've made it required that the northern lot only be accessed through the property, through that internal access lane. That's the primary way up there. The gates to Fremming on the northern lot will be closed. They'll be monitored because it's a secondary access. You might need emergency access to get out. But really, the vast majority of the traffic during a game is going to flow from the main lot to the secondary lot through the property. The other thing we've done is if other visiting teams or even folks from Desert Christian are parking over at El Camino Baptist, we've obligated to notify them that they can't use Helen Street, which is the red arrow that's on this map. That's one of Samprezi Estates. They have their own private roads. They're not public roads. So they don't want people using them. They don't want people walking through. And so what we've agreed to do is to notify people to use the Speedway sidewalk to access the high school. And really, even during the first few games, committed to either having somebody down at El Camino or having some signage that says use Speedway to access Desert Christian. So we mitigate those impacts. So these are really the things that we've done. Oh, those are things we've done for parking. We also had some discussions with Samprese Estates about an easement. That's the light blue line that's right there between the athletic fields and the homes. That's property that is owned by Desert Christian. It was owned by the city when they owned it. But it's between the fencing, the wall of the athletic fields and the wall of the Samprese neighbors there. It's a 30-foot wide utility easement that probably is an access easement as well. They were concerned that something was going to happen to that. We've assured in our conditions that easement will be maintained, just maintained will remain. It will the school has also agreed to upkeep that area, make sure there's no trash, weeds, things like that. And then they've also put in a condition that they won't have students in that area unless they're supervised by faculty or staff. So those were all agreeable to us, and they're all contained in the conditions. Some of the other commitments that we made in those conditions is just noise mitigation. Right now, there's temporary PAs during games, but when permanent PAs go in, direct those away from the single-family residential areas to mitigate noise. For the public access that I mentioned earlier, making sure that that's only available dawn to dusk, that the lights aren't on for the general public, that the lights are really focused on uses by Desert Christian, not the general public, which we're agreeable to. And then obviously no fireworks displays. That's more than reasonable. I'd mentioned earlier, we had submitted a letter this week with some minor changes to the conditions. This was an effort that in our last meeting with Samprese State Board, we basically kind of did a red line of some of the conditions and added one. I'm not going to go through these, but if you have any questions about these or any of the other conditions, I'm happy to answer.
The one thing I feel a little bit uncomfortable with is if the condition has the city monitoring the behavior of students versus where you can park and where you can't park, more of a land use issue.
Mm-hmm.
We can enforce land use issues. We don't monitor people's behavior like the students. That's for the school to do.
I think that condition, I understand where you're coming from on that, and that makes sense. I think the condition wasn't necessarily about behavior, but it was just about the presence of, what that area can be used for. So I understand where you're coming from, but our intent was.
I'm going to take a look at it, and I'm going to make
Okay.
sure that it is enforceable from a zoning point of view. I'm not backing off of the intent,
Sure.
but it has to have a zoning point of view.
Makes sense, yeah. So unless you have any other questions about the conditions, I'll just kind of move on to my next slide, which is the last one.
Go ahead, next slide.
So as you know, there's 5 findings for approval that you have to.
Okay, can I stop you there then?
Yeah, sure.
There is the issue of the public address system, and I don't remember you talking about that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, or maybe I missed it when you talked about it?
Yeah, so we have agreed that any PA, public address system, PA, I use that acronym, would be directed away from, essentially directed to the west, not directed to the east, and kind of directed
Okay,
away from family residential.
Do you have an acoustics person on your team?
So we don't have one engaged yet, but we've spoken to somebody who can do that work,
Okay.
and we'd be happy to engage somebody to
I
work
looked
with
into
us.
that particular condition, and it's not part of what acoustic people do,
Mhm.
directing. There's a way to do it. Half of that condition was correct and half of it was wrong. And however it's done, it has to make sure that we're actually doing correct acoustic
Mhm.
kind of monitoring and analysis.
Yeah, and we've talked to a noise engineer. Actually, I talked to him this morning, Lance Willis, who does a lot of work in Tucson. He said he's available to do that kind of analysis and would be willing.
Okay, and you're familiar probably with the excessive noise ordinance
Hmm?
because of this project. And you're probably aware that athletic events at schools are exempt from the noise ordinance. So you're going above and beyond the noise ordinance in regulating the public address system. Now, you've talked, normally what I'm thinking when you're doing the public address system, you're talking about the athletic, talking about the athletics on the field or a safety announcement if there's a need for one. I assume there's going to be a crowd. Is there a band that plays during football games?
There's a very small band, right? How many? Marching band. How many people are in it?
I think this year there were 24
24 people
Okay.
marching band. Yeah.
Just so we have an idea what's going on here. You have athletic events, they're exempt from the noise ordinance, so we're not expecting the crowd to hold up signs saying yay. They'll cheer and the band will play. The one I was wondering about, and this is common at more professional athletic events, is to play music before the event starts and maybe after the event's over. I haven't heard anything about that. That's something that I don't know if you need to have that. And I'm wondering if you've thought that through, because I think the announcements are fine, but having rock and roll music playing before over the public address system, is that something you're anticipating to do?
during the football games. We have done that, yes.
Okay. So that, did you, I don't know if you heard.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he said that they have played music before games. They have played it before, yeah.
Well, and we're, like I said, the PA system is used in 5 to 7 football games.
You can come up and speak
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
like.
why don't you come on up?
And identify yourself, please.
I'm Aaron Jansen. I'm the COO at Desert Christian Schools.
Hey, thank you.
I live at 9242 East Helen Street, ironically on Helen. But yeah, addressing the noise, we are using the PA system and we do play music for the football games. And then, Rory mentioned the 10 or 12 soccer games that occur. We are not using a PA system during the soccer games or the softball games. However, on their senior night, right? So our seniors are always honored in any sport. There will be a PA system to make announcements to honor them and their families at the end of each season. So that would be during a softball game at the end of the season, during the soccer game at the end of the season, and then the 5 to 7 football games that we've addressed. So I think the PA system itself, along with music being played before and after, are again minimal amount of events that will occur. But we have played music. Our marching band does come on, plays a song in advance of the game, and does a halftime show as well. And during timeouts, playing a little peppy tune for the guys as well. So
Okay,
any questions?
pretty traditional stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we know, we've talked about everything that's coming over the PA system. It's not only announcements, it may be some musical interludes on occasion,
Correct.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
But I guess the only thing I'd add is, again, to reiterate, we're agreeable, the school's agreeable to hiring an engineer to install a permanent PA that would be, that would mitigate that noise as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. So you can go back to Howard.
Okay,
with your-
perfect. Yeah, I'm almost done. So as you're aware, there's findings for approval. I think we clearly meet these findings. The first finding is that essentially our land use has to comply with all of the codes. Take out the requests that we're making to go beyond 7 o'clock. Other than that, this is a land use that fully complies with all the codes. And it was recently approved. The development package was recently approved. So it's in full compliance with the UDC. Finding 2 is really, I think, at the crux of this is are we, do we have conditions in our requests that substantially mitigate the use? I think the combination of the conditions we've put in, the minimal nature of our use after 7 p.m., where we've limited those hours of operation, and then just the sheer number of times we're using it during the year is very small. I think we clearly have substantially mitigated this use. Criteria 3 is about vehicular circulation and parking. I think we showed that the school was already doing a good job of having backup parking. Now, this case has allowed us to maybe tweak that, address some of the neighbor concerns. So I think we meet this criteria. 4 is regarding public services property. We clearly meet that. And 5 is general plan compliance and the local plan compliance, which we've covered in our application and Mr. Slater covered in his presentation. So I think we meet these findings for approval. Based on this, really, based on our request, the work we've done to try to mitigate this, we just respectfully request you approve this, and happy to answer any questions.
I just want to go back. So I completely understand the public address system. Is what you are saying you're going to comply with is the acoustics from the sound energy from the public address system will meet the excessive noise ordinance of 70 decibels at the property line of the neighborhood, regardless of what they're playing on the public address system. Is that correct?
We're comfortable with that. We think that, I mean, at one of the football games, we actually had somebody go out to the property line and during the first quarter of a game and with a phone decibel reader, which I'll admit it may not be perfectly scientific, but the readings they got were between 56 and 65 decibels. So, and that fence is 300 feet away from the field. So there's the advantage of distance and things like that. So I think we're comfortable that meeting that noise ordinance, the 70 decibels until 10 p.m., which we're not going to go past 10 p.m., but we feel comfortable we could meet that.
Okay.
With some assistance with the noise engineer particularly.
I want to go back to an earlier comment you made about the division. They're in Division 2, and maybe Mr. Jansen can answer this question. Of the teams that they play in Division 2, are there any teams without field lights?
Yeah, he said he didn't know the answer to that question.
Can you name some teams that you play?
For football?
Yes.
So we played.
Come on up to
Aaron,
the
come on up.
microphone.
Remember. So we played, some of these are away games, but we may play them at home the next season. So we've played Catalina, we've played Santa Rita, we've played, I believe Tombstone, possibly Wilcox, Benson might be a possibility. What else do you guys remember? Santa Cruz Valley, I believe, is in Casa Grande.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, at least I wanted to get the Tucson teams, and you mentioned Catalina
Mhm.
and Santa Rita,
Yes.
Rincon or Santa Rita?
Santa Rita,
Okay, both of those schools have field lights. I
correct.
had children that played sports, and I know that all the schools
Mhm.
in Tucson have field lights.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Jimman, I think I have no more questions for you.
Thank you, Ms. Mazaga.
Okay, with that, I will turn to the audience and I'll call your name. You come up, identify yourself and your address for the record, okay? So the first speaker is Richard Harris. Mr. Harris, are you here? Okay. Come up to the speaker, to the microphone, adjust it for your height, and you can go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Richard Harris, 1255 North Tracy Avenue, Tucson 85715.
And Mr. Harris, just for the record, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to speak, okay?
Okay. I would like to examine certain points that this exemption would affect. Our community is 119 family units, mainly by owners, some renters. We have a great many senior citizens, some in their 90s, and some have medical limitations. My wife is on oxygen at all times, and our house is right adjacent, right across from the softball area, which is in constant noise. One thing that wasn't brought up when they're talking about the games, there's also a lot of practices. And during the practices, they're as noisy, if not more so. You see, we lived in Tucson since 1970. This will be our home until our passing. Our home has been a great experience in a friendly community. Now, instead of a quiet patio with a majestic view, we have a view of a softball field with its noise, a football field with its noise, pickleball courts with their incessant noise. And I'm not aware of any other school sports field without a buffer zone to soften the impact from the lights and sound. We weren't notified of changing our neighbors until they needed this exemption, not very neighborly. We weren't aware that it had been sold or anything, or that they were going to use that area. My wife and I have been bombarded with bright lights and loud noises. I understand what we're being told might happen in the future, but it isn't happening now. And our last experience was that it would be too expensive to do the lights the way that they should be in the future. So it'll be a while before that comes, if it comes. We also don't have just the high school, we have junior high. There are other groups using it besides that. High school for hot softball games and the pinging of basketball courts at all hours, soccer games, practices, bands practicing and performing. We can't enjoy. I used to do astronomy, go up on the roof. I know that Tucson has a light ordinance because of Kitt Peak. I've been here since 1970, so I'm aware of the changes in that. Okay. In the winter, we got a lot of visitors in a warmer climate, and it attracts vagrants at that time, and we need policing around the easement and after the games. And we're also talking about how hard it is to leave Fleming onto Speedway, especially if they're going to turn east, and then it blocks up everything. So, like I say, the softball near our house is very loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Oh, and I forgot to mention that after everyone speaks, the applicant has another opportunity to speak. So just so you know, that's how the public hearing works. Okay, the next speaker, Aaron Jansen.
Thank you for letting me speak this evening. Aaron Jansen, CO at Desert Christian School. My address is 9242 East Helen Street. I'm currently the COO and junior high principal at Desert Christian Schools. I've been employed at DCS since 2002. I'm a graduate, and I remember DCS from the beginning as my parents sought to begin a Christian school on the east side of Tucson back in the 1980s. I've been with the school for a long time. I have 3 children enrolled at the school, and I plan to be with DCS for decades to come. I tell you that because I know it has been difficult on our neighbors throughout this process at Desert Christian, as Desert Christian has bounced around from different heads of school to an interim and seeking a new head of school currently. I'm here to reassure our neighbors that I will be around for the long haul. I'm responsible now, just this year, for operations as we created that position in the past year. And as such, I will be responsible for enforcing and adhering to the conditions that were outlined this evening by Rory. The mission of Desert Christian Schools is to pursue excellence in Christian education, foster Christ-centered relationships, and endeavor to meet the needs of each student. Fostering Christ-centered relationships is not limited to tuition-paying families or our employees only. Fostering those relationships extends to the community in Tucson, chief among them our next-door neighbors. For the past decade, I've been the principal and administrator at the Wrightstown campus, 9415 East Wrightstown Road. I've developed a relationship with the neighbors on both sides of that property and have found the benefits of staying in close contact as well as proactively communicating when issues arise. My goal in the future would be to do the same with our Sampresi Estate neighbors as well as the others around the school. Recently, I attended a meeting in December with 3 representatives from the neighborhood board. As a good faith effort, I gave them my business card, cell phone number, should any concerns arise in the future. Many of the conditions are already being enforced and considered and discussed and revisited on a daily basis at the school. But we know it will take time to train all of our families, visiting teams, and employees, and we are committed to doing that. We will continue to communicate the expectation to drive through and walk through the campus in order to access the fields, to not use Fleming as an entrance, nor cut through Helen Street, which belongs to the Sampresi neighborhood. We've instructed our landscaper to keep the easement clean and well trimmed. We relocated our porta potties further from the wall than previous seasons and have serviced them weekly in order to be good neighbors. Employees, of which I counted only 12 vehicles today, are the ones who can park in the upper lot, not students, as to limit potential traffic or issues on that east side up against the Sampresi Estates. Students are always supervised should they be on the fields for practice, games, or cleaning the easement, as we would like to be good neighbors and keep that area clean. In addition, we've spent numerous hours rescheduling soccer games.
You have 1 minute.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yep. 1 minute. In addition, we have spent numerous hours rescheduling soccer games this winter to make sure we are in compliance with the zoning. If given a favorable result regarding the rezoning of the athletic complex, it is my own expectation, as well as the expectation for all the members of the DCS community, to comply with the conditions, as well as conduct ourselves in a manner that is respectful and responsible towards our neighbors. If these expectations are not met, I will address the persons personally or the situation immediately so that Desert Christian complies with its commitment. Personally, it is also my expectation to remain accessible and approachable to our neighbors should they need us. I'm grateful for our neighbors and their board as they've worked with us to create realistic and helpful conditions, as well as hear our heart's desire to be good neighbors while also providing an exceptional education experience for our student athletes. On behalf of the Desert Christian community, thank you, and thank you, zoning officer, and for hearing us this evening. Thank you.
So just one question. To summarize, the neighbors who are, adjoining the athletic facilities, they have access to you directly
Yeah, they have access to me directly through their board.
through their board?
Yeah, I didn't ask them to distribute my cell phone to every home, but
Okay.
they have it should
So
one of their homes contact them with a concern.
They can
Then-
go to their board and get through to you,
Uh,
and if it
Absolutely.
means they talk to you, they can talk to you.
Yeah, they can email me or they have my cell phone if it's an emergency.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is, I'm going to need my glasses. Dr. Jerry Bowen.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jerry Bowen. I'm the interim head of school at Desert Christian, address 3231 East Camden Street, 85716. I just want to thank you all for giving us this time to address you and to answer any questions. Because I'm in an interim role, I've been retired 3 times. This is my 3rd interim gig, which I love it, obviously. But I'm on board to help the school transition between one senior leader to another. So we're in the process of that. But I actually sent the examiner a letter as a parent. I had 3 children graduate from the school. I've been associated with the school for 30 years and have been engaged with a number of different activities and have watched the school's growth and have been thrilled with this expansion possibility. Coming into the circumstance midstream, I was not there at the beginning of this, but certainly watched the build out. My view is from the 30,000-foot level, and here's what I've seen. The school is working hard, one, to be a good neighbor with the neighbors on the east and the north, is willing to listen and be flexible to concerns, realizing that it is a school, there's only so many things you can do, but there's some things that we can't do. One of the requests was pack up the field and move it down Speedway. That's probably not going to happen. But we do try to address issues as quickly as we can and as financially feasibly as we can. And from my vantage point, both as a retired gentleman, I appreciate these folks and the challenges that come with change. My neighborhood actually had a church transition into a charter school right across the street, and we had these very kind of meetings to talk about traffic, noise, the very same things. Well, that was over 20 years ago. And of course, the neighborhood did adjust to it. And that school is still there right across the street from my home. But from my vantage point, the school has shown good faith in meeting with the neighbors and listening, not taking an adversarial role or pushing any sort of agenda, but trying to find a middle road and be understanding of the concerns, and then working to the specifics that will help ameliorate those concerns as much as possible. So I just want to close by saying thank you to the examiner and to those representing the city. We're very appreciative, both of you, but also of the folks that are the neighbors around the school. Our goal is to really become a good neighbor as much as we possibly can. It's my conviction that what you saw in the screens earlier, this is a positive move both for the city and for that area, as what was a pretty rough area has been transformed into a very attractive and useful product for both the city as well as for the neighborhood. I think it brings true value to both the school, but also to East Tucson. And I mean, you saw from the pictures, we went from the visual of sort of a dump area and parking area to a very attractive and upgraded environment. So the school, in closing, is committed to keeping the complex as well as the surrounding property, easements, all that, both clean, safe, and well cared for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next speaker, Lance Titone.
My name is Lance Titone. I live in San Prisi Estates. My address is 7656 East Helen Street. I also own several properties in San Prisi Estates. My family has been there since 2009. And one of my neighbors asked me to submit these into the record. So I mean, I think San Prisi is really getting a lot of the feedback from this as far as what's happening here. But I have several properties in San Prisi Estates, and I only received 2 letters, and they were actually sent to a property that I don't even own anymore. So I don't know how all that's working out, how the efficiency of all this is working out. As far as notification. But I mean, I really don't think that it's a beautiful facility, and I think Sam Presi has actually done everything they can to try and be good neighbors. But everything that's happened to this point, I think we've basically uh, heard one thing and been told one thing, and then another thing happens. So I think there's a lot of bad feeling. I mean, at least I feel that way. Like I said, I own several properties in there, and from the beginning, to have public access to this facility, I don't understand. I mean, Udall's right there, so I don't know why we need it or any of the neighborhood. I don't know why the city's involved with partnering with them. I don't understand this at all. Actually, in the slides that they had up, there was pine trees that used to grow all the way around that vacant lot that was there before, and now they're all dead. So that was one of the best sound barriers that we had at that time, because honestly, my personal residence is at the other end of Sam Presi Estates. And when I have my TV on and I have double pane windows and all the windows and doors shut in the house, I can hear the football games and the PAs and the crowd and everything. I actually have to turn my TV up so I can hear the TV and not the game. So, there's so many points here to be made, and it's just I think it was actually just a poor plan to put this facility so close to a neighboring community. The apartments that are right next door, I don't know how they're notified as to this issue, but they're even closer than we are. So I mean, if I lived in the apartments, I mean, I would be looking to move because the sound levels I mean, they're amazing. The softball field lighting is actually, they put in their plans that says if we do lighting on the softball, we'll apply and do application at a later date. So it's not that they don't plan to do it. The school actually started out small and it's been growing every year. So I think that it's already beyond capacity for what it is. The lighting that they're using now is in violation of all of our codes right now. So nothing gets done and they still continue to use the lighting. So I don't know how all that works. This easement maintenance, our landscape committee and Richard Harris that came up and spoke first is actually maintaining that easement. I mean, I don't know why we're doing it when they said that they would agree to it. And I'm sure I'm going to run out of time here because, I mean, I could.
About 27 minutes. Go ahead. You can finish up. Go ahead.
I honestly, when they very first submitted this to do a zoning change, they told us that they were going to do no lighting, that it was just going to be 1 or 2 games, and it's totally changed now. And now we're looking at, games until 10 o'clock, and the amount of sound trespass and lighting. This is the first time I've heard that we're going to have that they're going to have a sound person, because when they first told us they can't afford the lighting. They can't afford the lighting for a couple of years. And now we're finally hearing about a sound person where the sound, like I said, I can't even see any of the games or anything, but sitting in my home, I can hear their game. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tatar. Jojo Chirko?
Good evening. The pictures that were submitted, I think are.
Could you say your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my name is Jojo Chirko. I reside at 205 South Brown Street, but I own 3 homes in Sam Prezi Estates. One is directly affected right on Tracy at 1245 North Tracy Avenue, and I own 2 others in the community. The pictures that were submitted to you, I think, are very important and should be noted. Those are showing the lights that are affecting the homes that are right on Tracy. And that is showing proof of how the lights are coming into the homes and to Mr. Harris's homes, that the lights are not being buffered. And I think it's very important for you to see how that is affecting the homes on Tracy and on the other side. I don't think anybody that lives in the community or anybody that is anywhere near would be not bothered by the lighting that would be coming into their home on a daily basis. So to begin, thank you very much, Zoning Board, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Again, I am JoJo Chirco. I, along with my husband, does own 3 homes in the Sam Prezi community. And again, we have one that backs directly against the field, the athletic field on the east side of the Christian school. I actually am a member of the Chirco family that originally developed the community of Sam Prezi Estates, which is 119 units. This was originally defined as a quiet enjoyment, predictable evenings, stable property values. I am also a real estate broker with nearly 50 years of knowledge and expertise in the residential and new home market. The Sam Prezi community has felt a tremendous impact from this athletic field and on so many levels. I know others will be speaking about the stadium style lighting, amplified noise, frequent evening activity, and traffic beyond what a residential area typically supports. The introduction of bright field lights and ongoing noise, especially during evening hours, fundamentally changes that expectation. These are not minor inconveniences. They affect sleep, privacy, and the peaceful use of our homes. Over time, these factors are well documented to negatively impact property values, marketability, and long-term neighborhood stability. The sellers of homes along Tracy were told by potential buyers that they would not buy due to the athletic field being out their back door. This now not only affects the homes along Tracy, but the entire community of Sam Prezi is affected by the decision of allowing this athletic field to have been allowed. As a real estate professional, I can attest that these factors directly influence property values and marketability of homes. Homes that were once attractive to buyers for their quiet surroundings are now facing challenges in resale value and buyer interest. This impact isn't just about numbers, it's about quality of life for families who live there. It's about maintaining the integrity and stability of our community for current and future residents. When zoning decisions allow uses that...
1 minute, 1 minute. Go ahead.
Pardon me?
1 minute.
When zoning decisions allow uses that significantly alter the character of a neighborhood, that balance is disrupted. This was never truly compatible with the surrounding residential area, and alternate locations should have been selected. What happens when they outgrow their facility and they outgrow this facility? They have created this tremendous headache for all the surrounding neighbors. I respectfully urge the board to consider these long-term implications and to find a solution that balances the school's needs and the well-being of our neighborhood. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name, Pat Beigel? Beigel? Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Pat Beigel. I live at 1246 North Tracy, so I am on the other side of Tracy, on the east side so I'm not as close to the fields as Richard Harris is. I moved to San Prisi Estates in September 2020 because it's a quiet residential neighborhood where I plan to retire. In October 2024, football game noise began disturbing that quiet. While walking my dog, I heard loud, explosive sounds similar to fireworks, causing the dog to panic and pull me home. In addition to the game noise already described by Mr. Harris, children run and scream throughout the games without a parent's supervision. While the game noise is intermittent, this activity is constant. And they are playing close to the east side. So they're by the parking area, by the pickleball courts, and it is extremely loud. During construction of the fields, trees on the east side of the property were removed, leaving little to no buffering between the fields and nearby homes. Residents have met multiple times with Desert Christian and its legal representatives to request a noise study and mitigation plan. Revision 1 of the SELU permit includes condition 12, which states that PA systems will be directed, and I know Roy Juneman covered that. However, they also say that or that noise will be mitigated through technological or sound system design measures. This language seems very vague, and to date, no noise study has been completed. Earlier, we were told a sound engineer was involved. However, at a December 4th meeting, we were informed that a study and mitigation plan would be too expensive at this point. I respectfully request that DCHS be required to retain a qualified sound engineer to measure noise during the games and practices and develop a noise mitigation plan with input from affected residents. Potential solutions, including a transparent sound barrier east of the field, should be evaluated. Finally, condition 10 requires maintenance of the easement areas, and I think we've brought this up a couple of times. Currently, the east half is maintained by Mr. Harris, and the west half currently has buffalo grass that has gone to seed, and it is a mess. I request enforcement of this condition. So I don't know what's going on with your landscaper, but it doesn't sound like it's working. So just to let you know. Thank you so much for your consideration. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Hey, Carol, is that skippers or shippers? I don't have a David on here on the list, but if you want to come speak, I'm not going to stop you. Okay, could you tell me who I've just called? My name is David Greenley. Okay, David Greenley.
I'm sorry. I emailed one in. I don't know if I mailed it a few days ago, so it should have made it in. Okay. My name is David Greenleaf. I live at 7606 East Helen Street. I am in the footprint of the zoning exemption or the zoning exemption request, and I come today to speak on a few topics. I am also a former president of the HOA, the San Prisi Estates HOA. I do not speak on their behalf, but what I have to relay involves my time in that position. And that was that when this first came to us, it was originally just the East Side City Hall. And they came to us and they said, we would like to, we're going to be rezoning this. It popped in just the same way this did. It came up in the footprint. All the notifications went out, all the public hearings. As the president of the board at that point, I called the school. They referred me to their to their attorneys that were handling the zoning exemption. I don't know if it was it may or may not have been the people of whom I speak. I can't even say that it's anybody here. I'm not pointing fingers or blaming, but I can say that we were legitimately misled as to the scope of this project. And that still doesn't really play into the fact that, other than the fact that what I'm asking for is what are the teeth going to be for this whole process? Because there's been a lot of talk about requests and arrangements and agreements, but even right now, the school is out of compliance with the current zoning. So what kind of assurances do we have that they will abide by the future zoning and the voluntary the concessions that they're making? Again, I don't know that they won't. I have faith that they're going to do the right thing, but I had that when I spoke with their attorney before. And I went to my constituents comfortable that this was just going to be a recreation field. There weren't going to be stands. There weren't going to be bleachers. It was just going to be a recreation field. And I went to my constituents and I said, let's let them rezone the office building, because this field wasn't even part of that process. But I said, let's be good neighbors. And I convinced my constituents to, put down their pitchforks and torches. And we said, yeah, we're going to do that. And then once the office got rezoned, then they started constructing this athletic field, which again, I live on Helen. I live on the south side of Helen. I probably get more noise from the garbage trucks that pick up the dumpsters behind the strip mall. I get more, I'm thrilled that the recycle center is no longer there. I think that this could be a good thing, but I want to make sure that I don't get fooled again, and that the association doesn't get fooled again into buying into something that may or may not have teeth. And that's kind of what I'm asking, or what I'm getting at is what happens, because even now, when they're supposed to be turning the lights off at 7, there are numerous examples of the lights being on outside of the current zoning for the property. So if we say, well, it's only going to be 15, 25, 15 to 20 games, but then it turns out to be 20. And which 15 or 20, which 5 are out of compliance? I haven't heard any kind of assurances that, how is it going to be monitored? How are violations going to be reported or dealt with? And when it comes right down to it, even things like we can, that they can turn around and ask for a new zoning variance next week. And if this process goes the same way this one kind of feels like it's been going, there's not much that's going to happen then. So then they put up lights for the softball field or the pickleball courts and all these things that they just keep asking for more variances. What's going to be the assurance that this is going to be some kind of a binding agreement? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Carol, and I don't want to mispronounce your name, Skippers, okay.
Hello, my name's Carol Skippers, and I live at 7656 East Turnquist Street. I'm the very end house on the opposite side of the field. So I am almost to Grady Avenue, okay? I can hear this noise constantly. There's been a lot of focus on the football games. It's not just football. If it was 5 football games a year, we'd say, yeah, we love high school sports. We support high school sports. But it's not just 5 football games a year. It's practices, it's band practice, it's flag football. So now they're having flag football game, or they did have flag football games, and they needed the lights because it was dark at 5:30 at night. Soccer games the same. They have a women's soccer team and a men's soccer team. And so that's caused a lot of problems. Their parking lot size, nobody's addressed the size of their parking lot. They say they have adequate parking. No way. They have 128 spots in the front of their school, which even the kids that drive to school double park, and they park on Prudence Road. And that ought to be outlawed. For the games, they park up and down Prudence Road. They do park at the shopping center, even though the shopping center got a hold of the school and said, you are not allowed to use our parking lot because of liability. But these visitors that come, they don't know that they can't park at the parking lot, so they do. The other the El Camino Baptist Church over across Grady on Speedway, the people that park there, they have to get to the game. They're coming across private property. They're coming across our neighborhood, and they're coming across the shopping center. And the shopping center has commented to us that they're afraid of graffiti, the stores there, the store owners. I've been and visited every single one of them, and they said, yeah, that's not right. I believe you did get some letters from Jerry Bob's owner saying he's open Friday nights. Well, Friday nights are the football games. So he depends on the parking there. He has been graffitied in the past, and he said, you know, high school kids, what if they graffiti because of rivalries in the future? Right now, it is still a small school. It was not even noticeable. When I bought my house in 2010, I didn't even notice this little school next to us. It had been tennis courts in the past. When I grew up on Pima Street, right there, Pima and Grady. So that was my high school days. I knew of Samprezi Estates just being built in the 70s, and I ended up retiring there. That is my retirement home. It was advertised as a very peaceful, quiet, and safe neighborhood. I don't feel so safe anymore because there are kids that cut through our neighborhood on Helen Street. They're saying, oh no, you know, that doesn't happen. It does happen. And they're speeding at night after the game, and we believe it was players because it was well after the game. 2 cars come racing down Helen Street, going from the Fremming lot out of our complex. And Lance was supposed to mention that because he actually was outside when they did that, and he saw them turn from Fremming Street, race down Helen out to Grady. So you can't tell me that doesn't happen. So other than football games, they're having their junior high. What if their junior high starts having football games too at night? Are we going to count those into the 5? Flag football, does that count into the 5? Flag football has 2 to 3 games an evening. Now they start after school at 4 o'clock. So we hear it at 4 to 5 one game, 5 to 6 the next game, and then sometimes they have a game after that. So that's another hour of games. They're using the lights, and the lights, they're spotlights. They're not just, they're like spotlights, like a work light 10 times. And they have these on the pole, and they are shining into the houses. They light up the whole neighborhood, which you can see on those pictures. And everybody's saying, oh yeah, we're going to get these really nice lights. They've told us that since the first meeting. When are they getting the lights is what we want to address. Before they have more night activities, they should be made to get the lights. That should be a condition. No more night games until they get the code lights. That's what we are asking. The other thing nobody has addressed yet is the softballs hitting over the wall. The softball field is right up against the houses on Tracy and Fairmont. And Richard and I did go talk to the Fairmont people to see how they felt about it. One lady told me she's afraid to let her dogs out in her backyard because of the softballs. It's not softball season right now, so nobody is addressing it. The softball girls are so loud. They're, you know, teenage girls, I don't know if you guys have teenage girls, but get 2 or 3 teenage girls together out yelling, and oh my God, this is a whole team. So the softball games are, and they have practices. It's not just the games, it's practices. So you can imagine the disruption we have in our neighborhood.
Okay, well.
And why we're a little
okay.
upset.
Are you finished?
Yeah,
Are you finished?
That's
Okay.
it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any more speakers? Going once, twice, 3 times? Okay. Okay, with that then, Mr. Junman, are you going to give your speech?
Mr. Mazzocco, brief, thanks, guys. Yeah, have a safe trip. And they're from Phoenix, so they're going to take off.
Sure,
So sorry about
sure.
that. Just a couple of points. I think the main thing I wanted to address was there's a question of when the lighting is going to happen, and that's a legitimate question. I think in our last meeting when we left, I think we left with the impression, just because they didn't want to misinform anybody, they just weren't sure of their budgets at that point, at that last meeting. Since then, they've gone back, they've checked that they have the funds for the lighting, and that they're confident they can get the lighting in before football season this year. So it is true that we left, there was some uncertainty in our last meeting when we left with that, but they've been able to confirm and shore up those funds. So if we get this approval, we'll be able to move forward with those for next season. I do want to just take a second to address the claim of misleading and just give a little bit of clarification. Back in 2023, as part of this land exchange, it did include the old Ward 2 office. The Desert Christian benefactor who dedicated the land owns that Ward 2 office, and we had to do a rezoning for it because it was exempt from zoning because it was a city use. But now, when it went into private hands, it was zoned RX1, and we had to rezone it from RX1 to C1. That was early on in the process. We didn't have all the answers on the field. I think we knew, I don't think we ever said that it wasn't going to be athletic fields. I think that's been the case from the beginning. I don't think at that point they knew what the lighting situation was. I don't think they had funds for lighting at that time. But we were focused on getting the rezoning done for that Ward 2 office. And we knew that what they were planning for the fields was permitted as of right. So we answered the questions we could, but at that point, we didn't know all of the answers. It was still in the design phase. So there was no intentional misleading at all, I can assure you. The public access to the fields, that was part of the land swap agreement. That was something the city put in. I think if people wanted to get rid of it, we'd be happy with that, but that's part of the contract. And so we've got to work under that assumption. And there was some mention about the trees being removed. Those were removed they were infested with bugs. And so, or the trees that were removed were infested with bugs, and it was the recommendation of an arborist to remove them. So they had to do that. Aaron, do you want to address a few things? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I hear concerns about growth. And so, in a school, you look at data and you look at trends and different things. And so just Desert Christian High School, since I was a student in 1994 to 1998, the high school was roughly, this is not an exact number, but 200 students, like 50 freshmen, 50 sophomores, et cetera. Right now, over 25, 30 years later, the high school itself is 230 students. And so, a concern about growth, which I can appreciate and I can understand if I'm in the neighborhood, I'm worried about that. But if you look at the numbers, the capacity of the parking and the buildings itself, at most high school, which is currently 230, as Rory mentioned before, the high school itself could fluctuate possibly to 300. But we don't even necessarily know that is going to happen. We leave that in the Lord's hands if that's going to happen or not. I hear a lot of talk too about keeping up the easement. I'm hearing that's I guess a big deal to the neighbors on that side. I think, but you guys they could correct me if I'm wrong, and you guys are welcome to reach out to me. That's just because of pedestrian walking. And I've walked back there several times as well. And we've had kids go back there to pick up trash and to just make sure it's looking well. I think it's very walkable. If there is a concern about weeds, and I'm sorry if one of your residents has been coming out, I was not aware of that, He's welcome to reach out to me if he has specific recommendations. I'm happy to address those things. And then finally, I just wanted to mention the shopping center. We were contacted in August by the property manager of the strip mall there, right to the south of San Prisi Estates, and we responded to her immediately. There had been some confusion about using their parking, and they didn't want that, and we completely understand. So we've communicated to our people not to be parking in that area, not to be cutting through it, to use Speedway. And what I hear from them as well is just their concern is enforcement, and I get that. And so, all I can say is we will continue to redouble our efforts during athletic events, trying to prevent people who have to overflow park to walk the proper direction. We've had ideas of putting signs up, but we don't want to put signs up by Helen Street without your consent. But we could do signage there if that's something they would like. So those things, I did hear them saying enforcement, and it is on myself and our team to continue to make sure the conditions are being met. The last one is I do hear a lot of lighting, like lights are on. Well, currently, and I don't know when they say the lights were on recently, are they saying yesterday, last week? There are soccer games that we moved to be within the zoning code and end by 7 p.m. or earlier. And so, as we all know, it's dark already about 5:30. And so, yes, those lights are on, and we're in agreement. Those lights are not ideal. And so that's why we come here seeking the exemption so that we can put in the permanent lights and make that better for all parties. So there you go. Thank you.
So I'm just looking here. So if I understand this correctly, you're using lights that are non-compliant with the outdoor lighting code.
Mr. Mazzacco, the current lights are temporary lights on generators that likely are not compliant. Yeah. And that's the whole purpose of us being here, so we can get into compliance.
And in the pictures you're showing, those are state-of-the-art lights that really reduce the amount of glare going out into the neighborhoods.
The new LED lights that would be installed would be fully outdoor compliant. Yes.
So one of the speakers mentioned there was a rezoning on the school site. Was there a rezoning?
No.
This whole site is RX1, is that correct?
The northern section is RX1, where the athletic fields are. The southern portion where the school building is 03.
So you're in compliance with the zoning code as far as the correct uses are in the correct zones?
Fully compliant, yes.
Because an educational use per the City of Tucson zoning code is allowed in just about every zone.
It is.
There's a lot of mention of noise related to events that are not related to this specific special exception, that there's a lot of activity out there. There are people playing soccer and softball and pickleball and football, band. So those are all just things that happen at a high school. I'm taking it.
We believe that right now, the true public use isn't really available. The fire department uses it, but really there's nobody else besides Desert Christian students, faculty using those fields, but they're using them as related to school activity. Like the flag football, it was mentioned, they held one flag football tournament. It was a couple of games. I think that there were lights on, but that was a school related activity. Band practice obviously is, soccer practice obviously is. And all of the practices, they obviously have to practice, but they are all ending well before 7 o'clock. Those usually happen right after school. And so they end at 5:36.
There's a church they keep mentioning, and I'm not real clear what the relationship of that church is with the facilities. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So El Camino Baptist, the map showed it. It's one of the parking areas. It's about 1,000 feet to the east of the property. Thank you. So, come on. There we go. So at the far right of this, you see, I don't know if the Wayland Baptist University is the correct, that is it is okay. But El Camino Baptist Church is right there. That's all one facility. So there's a pretty strong relationship between the school and that church. That's where the school was when it moved in this area originally in the mid 90s. But they still have a strong relationship with that church. And there's an agreement that for overflow that has been in place before the athletic fields came around. There's an agreement to use that church parking for overflow parking for school activities. It's been in place for years.
One of the speakers mentioned the lack of parking, that you don't have enough parking for the facility, basically, for the students and the staff. Is that something you agree with, or?
For daytime use, I vehemently disagree.
Yeah.
Plenty of open spots.
For the regular school day use, there's ample spots. The overflow parking isn't used for that. There's plenty of parking for a daily activity. Kids that drive, the high schoolers that drive, the faculty, staff, there's plenty of room. The two churches that are available for overflow parking are used for events that might happen where you're gonna have more parking than available. So yes, they may not have parking for all the events that happen, but they've had in place for years a backup plan for that, which is overflow parking at these two churches.
So what you're saying is the students have parking on site.
The
There's room for students to park on site,
The students have parking on site, yes.
but people are saying they're not parking on site. Is
So
that happening, or?
Well, so there was a mention of parking along Prudence.
Mhm.
There's Prudence is used for stacking for pickup and drop off. So there is parking along Prudence in the mornings and the afternoons, because you have multiple grades that don't drive, right? Junior high and early high school. So they've got to be picked up. And so that's their method for picking those kids up, having the stacking on Prudence.
Okay. And as we were talking, and this is, one of the things that goes with living in a city, the excessive noise ordinance exempts athletic fields
Mhm.
for the most part.
Mhm.
However, you're saying that you're going to hire for an acoustical analysis for the public address system. And we've already talked about what it does. It makes announcements,
Mhm.
and it may have some interlude of music during specific kinds of games, be they mainly football games.
Mhm. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I have heard enough to go from here. I have another case coming up after this. So with that, it's 7:39 and this public hearing is closed. I'll prepare my preliminary report. It'll be available in 5 days. I hope you'll be able to see it. And there is an appeal. I believe this is one that we can appeal to the mayor and council. There may be a public hearing in front of the mayor and council if there is an appeal. And if you want to know more about the appeal process, you can ask our staff, okay? Okay, thank you for coming. And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll go to the next case. Turn this off. Okay, if everybody could take their seats, and we're going to start in a moment here. Okay, I'm starting the hearing. So if you're with the last case, can you leave? And if you're with this case, can you get seated so we can move on? Okay, case 2 is TP-ENT-0725-00019, 9/2020 East Rosewood Street, rezoning request from SR to R2, Ward 2. Can we have the applicant here? Is the applicant here? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to have the staff report here. I'm just jumping right ahead. Hold on. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sure. So this is a request by the Planning Center on behalf of the property owner to rezone a 5-acre lot from SR Suburban Ranch to R2 Residential to allow for the development of a new 25-lot single-family residential subdivision community. So the existing land use is, it has a single-family home constructed in the southern half of the larger 5-acre lot. It's currently zoned SR Suburban Ranch, and the proposal is for R2, which typically provides for medium-density, single-family, multifamily residential development, along with schools, parks, and other civic uses. There are a couple of related cases. Several of the subdivisions located in Rosewood Street were the result of rezoning cases, including the adjacent subdivisions to the east in 1985. And further down the road in 1983, both of those rezonings from SR to R1. The property owner wishes to rezone the subject parcel for the construction of a new 25-lot subdivision. The applicant has held a neighborhood meeting on August 13th, where they answered questions about lot sizes and proposed density, and addressed concerns about traffic, school capacity, and utility placement and drainage. They held a follow-up meeting on October 21st, 2025 at the same location to elaborate in project's compliance area and general plans, and cover a PDSD zoning compliance letter, which I'll cover later in the report. The land use policy in this area is guided by Plan Tucson and the Pantano East Area Plan. Plan Tucson, this is in the neighborhoods building block. The neighborhoods building block is geared toward maintaining the stability of existing neighborhoods and protecting the integrity of those neighborhoods. The proposed development is comparable in scale and use to the existing residential subdivisions, which created transition in density between the subdivision to the south and the suburban ranch zone properties north of Rosewood Street. It's also part of the Pantano East Area Plan. That plan was created to guide future development, and it was written at a time when 38% of the land in that area was vacant and had the potential for higher intensity development. The plan encourages design flexibility through residential clustering or planned unit development subdivisions. Planned unit development is an older term for a flexible lot development. The requested lots are approximately 6,200 square feet, and so they're consistent with that Pantano East Area Plan policy in that regard. The lot size is larger than what would be allowed under the R1 flexible lot development option, which would allow up to 29 lots on the site based on the total acreage. The Pantano East Area Plan doesn't define the definitions for densities in the Pantano East Area Plan don't overlap exactly onto the typical densities with the Tucson Uniform Development Code zoning classifications. The plan has a definition for low density residential development that's based on the number of residences per acre in an area. The PDSD director prepared a zoning compliance letter affirming that the proposed development of homes at the 5 residences per acre level is consistent with the low density description in the Pantano East Area Plan. The development is proposed to incorporate a mix of single and two-story homes with the condition that the four southernmost lots be developed with only single-story structures. In addition, the housing constructed would use clerestory windows on the second-story walls facing existing neighborhoods, and that only clerestory windows may be used on walls facing east and west to provide natural light. The entire project will be screened by a new CMU walls around every parcel. 16-foot alleys west and south of the project create an additional buffer, and a 7.5-foot drainage easement in the east property line will not be developed or enclosed. While the neighborhoods west, south, and east are all zoned R1, a rezoning to R2 in this area can implement conditions on development to limit the use intensity to that of an R1 flexible lot development subdivision. To ensure compatibility with surrounding land uses, staff has recommended conditions that would require development at this parcel with the R2 zone to comply with the design criteria of the R1 flexible lot development standards. So the proposed rezoning of the site from SR to R2 is appropriate for this location. It's compatible with existing surrounding land uses, and it conforms to Plan Tucson and the Pantano East Area Plan through the implementation of conditions limiting development to be within the character of an R1 flexible lot development subdivision. Subject to attached preliminary conditions, approval of the requested R2 zoning is recommended.
Okay, now the applicant may speak. Doesn't sound like it. Is there a button there?
It says push, but it's already, oh,
Okay,
there we go.
There you go.
We're on. All right. Good evening, Mr. Mazzocco, Mr. Beal, Mr. Slater. Thank you for hearing our case this evening. My name is Brian Underwood. I'm with the Planning Center 2 East Congress here in downtown Tucson. And the Rosewood rezoning here, if you could go ahead and go to the next, oh, I guess I got the power here with the clicker. Good deal. So to give some background on the property and context of where it's located here, the subject property is outlined in black, and it's got the pink fill on it there. It's about 4.7 acres. Actually, we recently just got our final Alta survey, and it's not actually 5 acres. It's a little bit smaller than that. But as you can see, you have quite a variety of home types. Within the vicinity, within a quarter mile of this site, you've got a range of single-family detached housing. You've got apartments, larger lot homes, and even some attached townhomes as well. And I should point out and mention that there's been a number of rezonings as Mr. Slater mentioned throughout the past several decades, as well as just an evolution of the type of lots that you've seen in the area. For instance, you have the large lots that are to the north of us in Harrison Estates. That was platted in 1948. Then to the south of us there, those homes were all platted in 1973, and they actually have kind of a boxy lot shape to them. And what's interesting about that is it really highlights that evolution of lot sizes, because even these single shot cul-de-sacs, and unfortunately this pointer won't point at the screen. The laser does not like the screen. But that subdivision, the Janal subdivision to the west of us, was platted in 74. And those boxier shaped lots to the south transitioned from an 80 to 85 foot wide width to a 73 foot width. And that was just a year later, right? And then the subdivision to the east of us there, the Woodrose subdivision, that was platted in 1988, and you saw another reduction in the width of those lots, right? And so it's just a testament to the change in market dynamics, the change in housing demand, and what's been built over the past several decades. So taking a closer look at the site's existing characteristics and what's immediately surrounding it, it's just the existing residence that Mr. Murdoch lives in currently. He's got some old remnants of equestrian facilities down in the southeast corner, a horse pen and stable and shed down there. But by and large, what you can see is there's a multitude of homes that have surrounded this property for several decades, and there's 9 homes along the east side, another 7 or 8 homes along the west side, 3 along the south there, and then you've got Rosewood Street to the north. Existing zoning is SR. We are proposing to rezone to R2, and I just want to take a moment to touch upon why we are rezoning to R2, and really, this has been discussed at both of the neighborhood meetings that we had, the initial meeting on August 13th and at the second meeting on October 21st. But the crux of it, the basic reason for why we are requesting an R2 rezoning instead of R1 is so that we can flush out all of these concerns, address all of the concerns from the neighborhood through the rezoning process, tie it down with rezoning conditions, and not have to move forward with another discretionary process being the FLD after we've already gone through a rezoning. And so that's why we submitted the letter, a request for a determination from the PDSD director, who came back and said, yes, I agree that it would be in compliance to with the Pantano East Area Plan and Plan Tucson to rezone this property to R2, but keep it within the density range that is prescribed by the Pantano East Area Plan, which is that low density up to 6 residences per acre.
So one of your options was to do a flexible lot development. That was one of your considerations earlier on?
No, we have not. We are not considering doing an FLD. We're specifically asking for the R2 to
This is standard subdivision under Article 8 of the code.
Exactly. And we've specifically asked to rezone to R2 to avoid that second step of having to do an FLD process after if we are successful in securing the rezoning. And then, as I mentioned, the rezoning process, it allows us to craft conditions, right? It's a more robust, more transparent process than perhaps the FLD process is. And one example of that is the condition that was added, number 11, ensuring that the development can meet the FLD's aesthetic standards. And so that was added in coordination with staff that, we would meet the design criteria of the FLD. So essentially, we're rolling what would be otherwise required of an FLD project into this rezoning, and we are removing the process associated with the FLD.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're only talking about the design standards of the FLD. The rest of it, you're not bothering with. You're doing a standard subdivision with design standards from the FLD.
That is correct. Yes, and I know that there's been a lot of concern that's been voiced at the meetings. I read it in the protests as well about the potential for that R2 and it setting a precedent or opening the door for multifamily development or something that isn't being proposed here today. And I can assure you that is not the intent. In fact, now that we are moving through the public process or public hearing process for this case, Mr. Murdoch actually now does have a builder that he's in serious negotiations with in escrow. And so there is a plan to build this project as we are proposing as single family detached homes at a low density and under the provisions of the design criteria of the FLD. And so just going into a little bit about, what we've covered during our public outreach. So these were a few of the changes that we presented on October 21st, where we presented a new preliminary development plan that reflected the removal of 1 additional lot. We originally had 26 lots. We bumped that down to 25. to accommodate drainage and a potential amenity area up in the northeast corner of the property. And then we also limited the 4 southernmost lots to 1 story. That's made its way into the rezoning conditions as well. And then we drafted some condition language to limit the type and number of residences, as well as the number and placement of those potential 2-story homes. So we've, we're allowing a limited number of them, or for the market to, bear a potential number of 2-story homes. But ultimately, we've tied that down through the condition language, and I'll get into that on a subsequent slide here. And then what you're seeing on the right side of this slide, and particularly highlighted in yellow, is just some of the text from the planning director's determination letter, basically highlighting that the R2 zoning process is an acceptable process with rezoning conditions that can capture the essence of the FLD. So this is some of that proposed condition language that we presented on October 21st. And I share this because it didn't necessarily make its way into the conditions that were crafted by staff, but I wanted to highlight these, particularly the first part of number 3 there. I won't read through all of them, because the first one is essentially captured by the condition that asks for substantial conformance with our preliminary development plan. So ultimately, if anyone ever tried to come in and develop apartments as has been speculated by the neighbors, that would not be something that's possible. And I should point out as well that in addition to the letter from the planning director being very clear that multifamily is not permitted, in addition to that, a rezoning wouldn't be able to move forward with multifamily without first pursuing an amendment to the Pantano East Area Plan, because it doesn't allow for multifamily, which would be, medium density or higher density, and this land only allows for the low density that we're proposing. And that's really what the intent of that second condition is just to tie it down, make it very clear to the neighbors and everyone moving forward, even from a staff perspective, that this is for a single family detached subdivision. But I really want to underscore that last condition there, because staff added condition number 11 to our list of conditions here, and that's what asks for the conformance with the design criteria of the flexible lot development. However, the conditions that we have here, and particularly number 3 there, provides additional protection that directly addresses some of the concerns that we've heard from the neighbors. So we are absolutely still amenable to adding that condition. And what I mean by that is that if you look at the design criteria in the flexible lot development, it says that you can't repeat the same elevation more than once on the same elevation every more than 3 times. So on the 4th lot, you have to change that elevation. What we're proposing here gives additional protections to the concern about 2-story homes. And that's why we've limited it to, less than 25% of the number of homes that we're proposing. So 6 homes total, and those homes cannot be placed next to each other. So the flexible lot development would allow up to 3 2-story homes next to each other, and then you'd have to change that. So this is intended to really tie it down further and take it a step further. And that's, again, underscoring the point of why we're requesting all of this to be addressed through the rezoning process, as opposed to, moving into a separate FLD process and rehashing these types of things. So briefly, I'll go over the preliminary development plan here. And this is almost exactly what you've seen in your packet. The only difference here is I mentioned that we had that Alta survey finished up recently. And so we went ahead and we made sure that our plan actually still fits the true dimensions of this site. And so you'll notice that the lots, we had a typical lot depth of 140 feet, but our property is actually about 7 feet narrower than we initially thought based on the GIS parcel lines. And so that 140-foot depth is now proposed at 137-foot depth. So we lost 3 feet on the depth of each of those lots. But I should mention that a typical backyard for any national home builder or local home builder is typically what they're looking for is about a 20-foot backyard. And based on the additional depth, that 137-foot depth that we have on these lots, these backyards will be more like a 37-foot deep backyard. So almost twice the typical 20-foot backyard that you see in a lot of the subdivisions around town. But I want to also point out down here in that southwest corner, we had a condition, I think it was condition number 14, to dedicate a 25-foot radius to the city of Tucson, I'm presuming to ensure, continued efficient and easy travel for trash trucks and any other kind of emergency response. Now that corner is taken off of the property there. So that's that rounded corner that we're showing there. But other than that, this plan is exactly the same. We've just taken out that radius and then adjusted it to fit our surveyed boundary. Lastly, I read a lot of concerns in the approval protest packet about roadway capacity and traffic, and so I wanted to just take a brief moment to highlight some of the existing traffic counts on neighboring roads. And there isn't actually a traffic count for Rosewood Street because it is such a low traffic, small local street. So there isn't a Pima Association of Governments or PAG traffic count for Rosewood. However, there are traffic counts from 2024 for Harrison, Speedway, and for Igo Way, which serves as more of a collector. That's that north-south street that's to the west of us there. And as you can see, what we're showing here, what I've highlighted, is the level of service C for both a 4-lane and a 2-lane road. And so you can see that Harrison has about 12,000 trips on it. I think it's about 17,000 trips on Speedway, and the capacity in a level of service C is 36,000. And what's actually determined to be acceptable in terms of traffic engineering and level of service standards is a level of service D. And so essentially, the numbers here that we're showing, there's additional capacity even beyond that. I think what it does is a level of service D takes that 4-lane road up to about 37,000 trips and some change. And then for a level of service D on the 2-lane road, Igo Way or Rosewood, that level of service D increases the capacity up over 10,000 trips, average daily trips. And as you can see, Igo Way has about 1,300 trips on it. So the addition of this traffic will not cause adverse impacts to any of the neighboring roadways here.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So you have Rosewood is the main access for this subdivision, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is Rosewood used to bypass anything? Do people get on Rosewood to go someplace to avoid something, or is it basically local traffic?
Mr. Mazzocco, I think for the most part it is local traffic. However, you do have the school right nearby. So that's Anna Henry Elementary School to the southwest of us. And so I can imagine that perhaps there are some folks that traverse Rosewood to get to the school. Yeah. And
Rosewood is totally paved. There's no dirt in it. No dirt part of it.
Rosewood is a paved street, but it's a semi-improved street, I would say. It doesn't have curbs and gutters. It's just a paved travel lanes. Yeah.
Are you going to be putting any kind of sidewalks onto Rosewood?
Yes, sir. So we will have sidewalks and curbing that we're installing along the frontage of the property along Rosewood, similar to the Rosewood subdivision to our east, or the Woodrose subdivision to our east. And I would like to just take one moment to ask if it's possible. You know, we have condition number 11 there, and I'd like to request that one exception from that, and it would be keeping that language exactly the same and then adding a comma, except for 1C3 garage placement. So that is one of the design criteria that is within the FLD, within the flexible lot development. And it is not something that we feel like the builder would be able to comply with. Basically what it says is that no more than 50% of the garages can either be flush with or in front of the living space or front entry of the home. And so we respectfully request an exception from that garage placement standard. Otherwise, we are fine with all other design criteria in the FLD.
I doubt the people who are in the room concerned about where you're putting your garage.
I would tend to agree with that, Mr. Mazzocco, that it's interior to the neighborhood. We will have just a single shot cul-de-sac down the middle. So all those garages will be facing the interior of the site. And with that, we respectfully request your recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I notice on one of your exhibits where you have the whole subdivision, and I'm not sure which one it is. Can you bring up the one where you're showing that one? So you're showing a red line in there as a landscape buffer yard, or what is that?
Good question, Mr. Mazzocco. So the red line is representing the setbacks. So there's a 20-foot setback along Rosewood Street there. And then we have, basically it's 2/3 or 2/3 the building height or 6 feet, and whichever is greater. And so what we've done is we've drawn that setback line for every lot north of 12, 13, 24, and 25 at assuming that maximum height of 25 feet. Even though only 6 homes will be allowed to potentially go to 2-story, we're showing that setback representative of a 2-story home. And then for those 4 on the south side, that's a 10-foot setback representative of a 16-foot building height.
So you're just talking about the building setbacks. You're not talking about a specific landscape buffer yard.
That's correct. Yes, there is no landscape buffer yard requirement along the east, west, or south sides. There is one, however, along Rosewood. So that's where we are proposing a landscape.
Has any of that changed since your first submittal that I would have seen in the packet that staff sent me?
No. We've never proposed any landscape borders along the east, west, or south sides.
Okay, and you're telling me, like, the package that I received would have been at least potentially 21 2-story buildings. Is that correct? In the original one that staff sent me, and you're telling me it would only be 6 2-story buildings in the entire subdivision.
That is correct. Only 6 two-story homes in the entire subdivision.
And that would be decided by the buyers and the home builder telling them, well, you can place it here, but you can't place it there.
Exactly. And it's a little difficult. I can't point at it, but I'll just use the numbers there. So with every single family, single story home that gets bought and sold there, that's going to narrow the potential for those 6 homes, right? Because the way we've crafted that condition, it says you cannot have 2 2-story homes next to each other. So you can't have one on lot 24 there, but you could have one on lot 23. So that means that you can't have one on 22, but you could have one on 21. So if someone comes in and they start buying and they have a preference for a single story home, well, they're going to start very quickly closing the door on the potential for any any two stories, or that six number is going to get whittled down very quickly. And so that was the intent. We just want a little bit of flexibility for anybody that, you know, has a larger family, wants that two-story home. That was the intent of us crafting the condition, to ensure that there would be no balconies there, we'd have only clear story windows. I should say as well that there is a pretty healthy vegetative buffer running along the east side of the property because of that drainage easement that Mr. Slater mentioned. And we will be staying out of that area, so that vegetation will remain. And as I mentioned before, you know, we're going to have some very sizable backyards, and you know, it kind of ranges across the board for what's adjacent to us. I mean, some of the homes to the south or to the west there, their yards are only, you know, 12 feet or, you know, 14 feet from the property line. But you have others that are 40, 50, 60 feet from the property
So
line.
if somebody builds a two-story home, give me a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Two-story home goes in on a lot. They want to buy this lot. I want to put a two-story home. So one thing we know about two-story homes is they tend to have a smaller building footprint than a one-story home.
Yep.
So that would mean there's potentially a larger rear yard to it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So approximately, what would that rear yard be again?
So on our single story footprints, the rear yard is going to be about 37 feet. When you put a two story on there, as you mentioned, that's going to, you know, we take that longer footprint and we cut it down in half maybe, and we take the, you know, second floor and put that on top.
So on the
And
west
we-
side,
when we-
west side, go ahead.
Yeah,
finish your thought.
so on the west side or the east side, if we have those three two-story homes on either side, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere around a 50 or a 60-foot yard backyard.
So, well, the west side, you have the 16-foot easement plus the 37-foot, hypothetical 37-foot.
Yep.
That creates around a 50-something foot.
And then if it's a two-story home, it'd be a smaller footprint. And so that 37-foot yard for the single-story home might be a 50-foot yard for a two-story home, because
But on the east side,
smaller.
it's pretty much rear lot line to rear lot line, isn't it?
It would be rear lot line to the easement. So there'd still be a 7.5
So
feet
there's
there
a
before
7.5
there
foot easement on the east side?
on the east side.
Okay,
Yeah,
37 plus 7.
7.5. Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Yep.
Okay. So you've got a little bit more of a setback. You don't really have any room for a landscape buffer yard, which always helps when you're doing two-story development. You're very tight here because you have to go right up to the existing single-story home pretty much on your lot. There's no common area buffer yard here. You really don't have any room to move that building, you know, kind of to orient it so that the windows are facing away from the house. No balconies, that's good. You said there's no balconies, so that's good. You mentioned window treatment. So the window treatment would have to be on all sides, or the three sides of the house, the north, south, and whatever side is facing the rear. And the north, south, you'd need a window because of building safety requirements to be able to escape for a fire or something.
Yep.
And nobody's going to go through a clear story window.
Yeah.
And what is the height of the wall? Is there a common wall around the entire subdivision?
Yes. So there would be, you know, essentially backyard walls, and then it'd be a side yard wall for the lots along the south.
Is the home builder building a wall around the subdivision that says, you know?
So there wouldn't be a perimeter wall and then
Yes.
backyard walls. There would just be the backyard walls forming a perimeter wall.
Okay. And so each house
Side
is
yards.
creating their own wall?
Yeah. So each home would have its own wall.
Well, I
You know,
mean,
just
I'm saying, is the home builder building the walls? As
yes.
part of the whole package? Like,
Yeah.
I'm buying your house and you're going to build me a wall too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The homeowner would not be building the wall themselves.
Okay, are we still on the same page here? Because what I'm trying to get at is there is a wall surrounding the subdivision that is guaranteed to be there.
Yes, because that wall will be the side yard and backyard walls that will be installed by the builder.
Okay, okay. And that wall, do you know what the height of that wall is going to be?
It would be a 5-foot wall. Yeah.
5-foot wall.
The 5-foot wall is what's required per code. We did notice, and I should mention too, you know, I saw the petition that was circulated. It was actually the first time that I saw that petition. So none of these concerns or requests rather have been brought to my attention or the property owner. But yes, I did see the request for a 6-foot wall on the east and west sides.
So here's what let me see if I understand how these design criteria are affecting your development. You've got a 5-foot wall and you've got window treatment, and you have, for an R2 lot, a fairly generous rear yard in the 30-foot range.
Yeah.
You know, be it 37, 30, about that. And whatever is already existing. So the west side folks are going to have a larger setback, and the east side folks are going to have maybe less than 40, but more than 30 feet of setback from their property line to this new building.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and they have their existing backyard wall. They have the existing vegetation that exists, you know, in their yards and along the drainage easement as well, forming quite a dense buffer and screen as well.
Okay. I'm gonna just leave it there, and I'm gonna open up for public hearing, and then you can come back and address any issues we have. Okay.
Okay.
Unless you have more to say.
I just wanted to cover one thing that I forgot to mention, because I know that 2-story homes has been a major concern. We've heard it since day one in our first meeting, but I did want to point out that there is some verticality in the neighborhood. In this, it's again, you can't see my cursor, but the subdivision that is ending in a cul-de-sac closest to Rosewood. So there's the other 5-acre parcel that's to the east of us. The subdivision that's to the east of them does have some 2-story homes in it. In addition, there are 2-story homes in the subdivision that is just behind the veterinary clinic at the corner of Speedway and Harrison. Actually, that's a 18 home community, and 10 of those homes are 2-story. 3 of which back up directly adjacent to the SR lot on the west side of them there.
Do you have any exhibit that points that out? Or is it just you telling me that I have to figure that out?
I do right here in my hands. I apologize. I didn't get that added.
Could you send that to staff so that I could take a look at that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's it for me, Mr. Mazzacco. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So now we'll take testimony from the audience here. You have 5 minutes to speak, okay? And when I start going like that, that means you have 1 minute. I'll let you finish your thought, but we don't want to go too far. So the first speaker is Gina Chinook or Chinook? Chinook? Did I get that right? Close enough.
Hi, I'm Gina Chinook.
Okay.
Understandable. I purchased the home at 750 North Janelle Circle. I think I'm the most recent neighbor because it was in May of 2025. If I had known that the property to the east of me was going to be turned into an R2, I would not have purchased it. I do not think that the value stays the same with a 2-story home to my east. Not just one two-story home, 2 homes in my backyard, at one being a 2-story home. And that's all.
Can I ask you a question? And maybe this is too personal, but what kind of rooms do you have in your rear? I mean, is this a privacy issue to you that you're concerned about?
I bought the property knowing that a ranch could turn into an R1. one-story homes. A one-story home might back up to my one-story home, would not really block my view of the Rincon Mountains. They would still be there. But this is a density that I would not expect in this neighborhood. I look at this neighborhood, there's no way I would have foreseen that. I rescinded an offer on another home when this house went on the market with all of these concepts, primary. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Next speaker is Richard Tolis.
I have some. Gabriel?
Okay, and like I said, 5 minutes, Mr. Tolis.
Mr. Mazzocco, this gentleman signed up as a speaker and wanted to donate his 5 minutes to me as well, because I need 10 minutes for my
Okay,
presentation.
fine.
Thank you,
fine.
sir.
And who are you, sir, who's giving it? What's your name? Andrews Francis? Francis, okay.
Thank you.
So we'll take your card out here. Okay, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Mr.
that's fine.
Tolis.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
so name and address for the record again.
Absolutely. My name is Richard Tolis, Tolis, and I'm the homeowner of 751 North Woodrose Place. And it might be helpful if you had that slide that showed all the lots that are up there, because some of what I'm going to talk about is going to be.
Sure, is
applicable- would
Mr.
help you.
Underwood here? Mr. Underwood, could you bring up the slide with the whole subdivision? And maybe we can leave that there, because it'd be easier for folks to
Thank you, Brian.
talk. There we go. Thank you.
And I want to say good evening, Mr. Mazzocco, Mr. Beal, and Mr. Slater. As I said, my name is Richard Tolis. I'm former Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force and a 37-year resident and homeowner in Tucson. I'm honored to make this presentation both on behalf of myself and my neighborhood. I've been involved in this process since the very first notification letter went out. I made preliminary contact with the Ward 2 Councilman's office, Ted Przylski, and one of the pieces of advice I got at that time, probably the only piece, was to get organized, which we did. We've had tremendous turnout and support at all the neighborhood meetings. And I'll speak to one thing that I heard that was not totally accurate. I'm not calling anybody a liar. I just think they misunderstood or misspoke. And because they said that some of the issues that were brought up were not brought up, or some of the conditional issues that were brought up in some of the things that Brian read from the neighborhood was not brought up at a neighborhood meeting. And that can't be true, because my wife, my high school sweetheart, she specifically asked Brian personally, will there be walls around the property? And then will they be 6-foot walls? Will there be separation walls? And that concern comes from the fact that that easement everybody talks about on each side of the Rosewood development, or Eastwood development, excuse me, on Rosewood Street, that is a private drainage easement on private property with no right of way. It's not available for fair game. And the vegetation that grows on that are my trees. And I can do whatever I want with them. They're not your buffer for the property that you're putting in. And I'm respectfully asking you, don't relieve yourself of any responsibility under the code by using me or my property or anybody along that western boundary. My western boundary shares directly with Mr. Murdoch's property. Okay. First and foremost, I'd like to say that while many of us are saddened, we are not opposed to Mr. Murdoch's desire to sell his land. We recognize it's his property to use or to dispose. Our opposition and objections center around the proposed rezoning and development of a subdivision in our valued neighborhood. We wish Mr. Murdoch well in his future endeavors. Pardon me, that's a medication alarm. Okay, forgive me, I thought I shut it off. Okay, the next slide is, or my next page, and I apologize to the audience for not having slides. I wasn't able to get them to the staff.
Keep on topic.
Oh, forgive me. Okay. Opening remarks. Then I'm going to talk about applicable plans and policy considerations. Objections to rezoning is R2 with justifications. Objection to non-compatible density and requested conditions and summary remarks. Okay, the next slide, or my next presentation, is that the applicable plan and policy considerations, that primary goals and guidelines of both Plan Tucson 2025 guidelines and the building blocks, as well as within Pantano East Area Plan, PEEP, is to preserve the integrity, scale, and character of established neighborhoods. Plan considerations include Tucson Plan Guideline A23, preserve and strengthen the distinctive physical characteristics and identity of individual neighborhoods and commercial districts in the community. Tucson Plan Guideline A24, support infill and redevelopment projects that reflect sensitivity to site and neighborhood conditions and adhere to relevant site and architectural design guidelines. Tucson Plan Building Block N1, low density residential R1 and similar zones development is generally appropriate along local streets and in the interior of established single-family residential areas. That's R1. Tucson Plan Goal N7, support environmentally sensitive design and projects and that protects the integrity of existing neighborhoods, complements adjacent land uses, and enhances the overall function and visual quality of the street, adjacent properties, and the community. The next page says objections to rezoning as R2 with justifications. R2 zoning is not consistent with the plan policy nor with the existing development zoning pattern for the area, which is primarily R1, SR, and RX1. Low density R1 residential development is generally appropriate along local streets and the interior of established single-family residential areas. This is an interior street within an established neighborhood. Low density has consistently been equated to R1 zone in both the Unified Development Code, UDC, and and area neighborhood plans like the PEEP for land use policy and rezoning reviews. The code, Development Code 4.7.8, Resident Zone R1 provides for urban, low-density, single-family residential development. Code 4.7.9, Resident Zone R2 provides for medium-density, single-family, and multifamily residential development. The Pantano East Area Plan provides residential policy direction to continue to promote the density development within the interior of established low-density neighborhoods. Policy 1, preserve the integrity of established neighborhoods. Policy 2, promote residential infill of vacant land where adequate provisions of streets and utilities are available. Objection to the non-compatible density that's being proposed. While this project proposed density of 5.0, which is what was in the proposal that was forwarded to us, which really is now 5.2, when you reduce the site down to 4.7 of an acre, not 5 acres, the density goes up. Stated potential of up to, the Pantano Plan, Gabriel, doesn't say 5, it says 6 for what's considered R1 and per square area, but it is not compatible with the prevailing densities of the established neighborhood. Density is a number. There's a lot of things that get taken into consideration for that. The PEEP policy implementation techniques say to continue to promote low-density residential developments within the interior of established low-density neighborhoods. Low and medium-density residential developments are generally appropriate along collector streets. Now you're out on Harrison and others. You're not on Rosewood or any of these little cul-de-sacs. Medium and high-density residential developments are appropriate along arterial streets. We're none of that. Additionally, this infill project site is surrounded by SR, RX1, and R1 low-density sites. Within PEEP, R2 zoning is located further north along, and that's the area Brian was talking about, Speedway, which is an arterial street with R2 and R3 zoning located along Broadway and Harrison, which are both arterial streets. which is well outside our innermost neighborhood, an established low-density neighborhood. The adjacent parcel to the immediate, the parcel adjacent and immediate to the property in question is R1 and has 19 homes on it and a density of 4.22. The adjacent parcel immediate to the west is R1 and has 16 lots and a density of 3.55. There's been some reference earlier to the project C898505, which is a little bit farther west, and it was the R1 that was redone a few years back using the FLD. That
You're
particular
getting
project.
close to your time, so start thinking about wrapping your comments up.
Okay. That project was a 4.77 acre lot, and it resulted in 13 homes at 2.33 density. Okay, I have a list here of conditions. Retain R1 zoning designation, minimum character, compatible design, the integrity of the zoning pattern in the neighborhood. Reduce the total number of homes to a compatible density. Propose no more than 18 to 20 single-family homes at 4.8 acres. Density would be 4.7. By condition, disallow any two-story homes within a proposed subdivision. There are currently no two-story homes among the 69 homes within the immediate neighborhood. You've got to go several blocks away to achieve or locate any of the ones that Brian was referring to. Concern for stormwater damage. Rosewood Street experiences excess water overflow, and there's parts where the road's breaking down. So there's concern for that. And the detention basins lead to a lot of collection of water, and then there's fear for that impact it would have on the road. There hasn't been a lot of concern for traffic. Protect our private drainage easements. I think I've spoken to that already. They're giving me their time as well, sir.
Okay,
Okay,
keep going.
thank you. Okay, I won't go back to elaborate on the conditions. You have copies of my proposal. Noise control we're requesting by condition, you ensure that the developer is conditionally required to prohibit radios to establish a firm start-stop times, also to provide the neighbors who immediately border the site with the name and contact number of the project supervisor. And that's from experience from the work that was done previously. Heights of homes by condition, ensure that any infill and grading do not ultimately result in elevating the attached heights of the subdivision homes to greater than the 25 feet viewed from the neighboring residence. Perimeter walls and heights by condition, ensure that the subdivision builds newly constructed perimeter walls east, west, and south, as well as the north appropriate for street access, whose heights, when on top of the infill materials, do not exceed the maximum allowable height when measured from inside the subdivision. Okay, this is my summary. The Plan Tucson 2025, as well as the Pantano East Area Plan, clearly support infill projects, yet both plans were designed to reflect sensitivity to the site and the neighborhood conditions with consideration for densities that complement the size and character of established neighborhoods. We are that established neighborhood. We are the citizens, families, and friends. The proposed rezoning R2 is not consistent with the integrity of the neighborhood zoning map, nor with the with the existing development zoning pattern for the area. The proposed density resulting from an excessive number of homes is not compatible with the density of the existing interior residential neighborhood. It is also noteworthy to mention that since October of 2024, this property has been submitted for pre-planning and development reviews and re-reviews a total of 3 times. And before the essential facts were apparently reinterpreted to gain subsequent favorable review. And I can give you the dates and times of that if you want them. On behalf of myself and more than 100 Tucson citizens, taxpayers, voters, surrounding neighbors from Rosewood Street, Janelle Circle, Rosewood Place, Jasmine Place, Rosewater Place, Sierra Street, Colette Street, and Igo Street, who are jointly opposed to this rezoning and development as proposed. Their collective opposition and concerns are evidenced by their signing of the recently submitted opposition petition to this proposed rezoning and development and by their individual and cumulative approved versus opposed forms. We respectfully urge that this request for rezoning be approved as R1, not R2. Furthermore, that the proposed subdivision be conditionally limited as we have presented and not to exceed 20 homes, density of 4.17, single-family, one-story homes. Decisions that would consequently maintain the integrity of the zoning pattern and compatibility with the character, density, and design of the established interior low-density, single-family, residential, and highly valued neighborhood. Thank you for this opportunity to present our concerns. You have any questions for me, sir?
Your special conditions that you were reciting, do you have that in writing that you can give that to staff?
Yes.
Oh, we have that?
You already have.
Okay, we have that. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think, so you made your key point here that you are not opposed to a rezoning per se, but not to R2, but rather to R1, which would allow 20 lots is the upper limit. And I don't know quite how big those lots would be, but they would definitely be bigger than 6,000 square feet.
Well, actually, they're proposing 6,300 square feet. And on the initial, one of the initial or previous proposals that was submitted to the staff was the recommendation that came back to them was to use FLD and not to exceed 18 to 20 homes on that very same piece of land.
And your other key point is one-story homes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you, sir. I
And
appreciate your
think,
time.
Okay, I think I get it. Thank you. Next speaker is John Pete Hyatt. Okay, I was going to do that next.
John Pyatt, 781 North Woodrose Place. I bought my house 25 years ago, primarily because my wife loved the emptiness of the empty lot behind us. Now, I realize progress is important and that would be filled in eventually, but I do not, and I would not like to see a two-story house built behind me. And if you look at the map here and the density on the west side and the density on the east side, it's like sticking a ghetto between two nice subdivisions. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker is Sarah. How do you pronounce your last name? Spenger? Would you like to speak? Okay, as long as it's a, okay.
Thanks, Lee. My name is Sarah Spangers, and I reside at the corner of Igo and Rosewood, 9115 East Rosewood Street. So I can address traffic because of Igo. Everybody that exits Rosewood is either going to Igo or they're going to Harrison. It's funny that I saw a 25-mile-per-hour sign limit on one of these displays because people go about 45 down Igo. They go any speed they want. We put one of those little slow men up in front of our house, and when they see it, they go faster. Anyway, that amount of housing is going to produce more traffic on Igo and more speeders. And with a school right up the street, it's only going to take one accident before people will slow down. But one will happen for sure. And we have one sidewalk, but not all the kids use the sidewalk. Sometimes they walk on the side that has no sidewalk. Also, when I see this, it almost turns my stomach. We also purchased, 20 years ago, and our house was coming apart that we bought, and we knew it, but we fixed it up. And a lot of the homes on Sierra Street have been run down, and people are buying them, single-family homes, and fixing them up, and they look great. We have neighbors that are very disappointed they didn't have the opportunity to purchase the 4.7 acres. They had no opportunity at all. They would have loved to have had that opportunity. And it makes me sick because it's such a lovely neighborhood. And this would be an eyesore in our neighborhood, having that amount of housing. And I'm also curious, would that attract people to buy the homes for renting? I feel it would be, because I don't really see somebody wanting a home with walls like that and boxes like that, you know, up and down the street, other than they'll purchase it to rent. And let me tell you, I used to manage a bunch of homes that were renters, and it's horrible. I think that's about it that I have, but I don't speak very well. I'm an artist. I look with my eyes, and this is an atrocity to our neighborhood. Before we bought 20 years ago, we walked it for 14 years, and I said to my husband, that house is going to be our house one day, and it was. But I never dreamed we would see something like this in that neighborhood. So I speak from my heart.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph Loringer, does that sound right? Did I do it right? Okay. Your name and address?
Joseph Lawrence, 720 North Janelle Circle. We are directly west of the property. We will be impacted by, looks like 3 lots, blocking any view that I've had for 25 years of the Rincon Mountains. My wife and I chose this house to raise our children, which we have, and we've really enjoyed living in this neighborhood. This rezoning to R2 is just simply not acceptable, and I object wholeheartedly that this should be denied. We are kind of in agreement with the R1 zoning, which we understand is progress, right? Infill, we want that. We don't want to keep demoing out and clearing land, but that's happening out further out of our city limits. They've made their point of no developer wants to do R1 lots, but there are. They just built several of them to the further west of us on, what's that street called? I forget. Rosewater. So what they're proposing is going to be unacceptable for my family to continue there. And that's not right. As a Tucson native, I feel that we elect officers like you to protect and understand why we live here, right? The only other thing is that I would really, if the R1 is approved, or that there are no 2-story houses, because it will block views not only from my house, but my neighbor's house, and it just lowers the quality of life. Would you like to add anything? Yes.
And I am Lynn Loringer, and we've lived in our house for 28 years.
Oh, sorry. My God. Okay.
So basically what I wanted to say is we can talk about all the zoning and the law, etc. But the beauty of our neighborhood, sorry, I said I wasn't going to cry, will really be impacted If you look at the first development on Rosewater, there's 13 single-story flat roof homes. Our development has 16 single-story homes. And Woodrose has 19 single-story homes. That is what maintains the integrity of our little neighborhood, with Rosewood Street that people walk their dogs and push strollers and doesn't have any curbs, and it's just.
Okay, honey, it's okay.
I'm
As you can
sorry.
tell, it's a very emotional. You've heard from several people that this is objectable for the R2 zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, an easy name to pronounce. Stephen Hill.
Good evening, Stephen Hill, 10660 East Dunsmore Place. Good evening, Mr. Mazzocco. We've dealt with each other in past days when I'm a civil engineer here in Tucson.
okay.
I've been party to many rezonings, and I don't envy you all in what you're doing. I've sat behind that counter with the DRB before, and I don't envy you being back there. But that said, I think I've probably done 6 rezonings within a square mile of this one. Some of these are my fault, but anyway, what I wanted to say, just as a civil engineer, I don't really have a dog in this fight, but I have friends that live in the Rosewood or Woodrose neighborhood. They bought back in the 80s when we all moved down here together to Tucson, and I think you can see that the neighbors have come together. I mean, I've never done a rezoning case that was easy. It's full of emotion like we have here tonight. But this seems like a fairly simple, if a rezoning case can be simple. I think the 2-story homes are an issue, and the density is an issue. I think if you make it compatible with the developments that are on each side of it, east and west, with no 2-story homes. I haven't talked to a neighbor. I haven't talked to all of them for sure, but I haven't talked to a neighbor that would object to that. I think everyone understands this is an infill project. Nobody thinks that land would never be developed. The land on the east side of this subdivision is going to be developed someday when that homeowner decides to vacate. But the last thing I want to just point out, my civil engineer eyes picked up on this, and it's been mentioned there's a 7.5-foot private easement on the, it would be on the west side, is it on both sides? Okay, well, from the Woodrose neighbors have a 7.5-foot, I think it's a landscape easement. I don't think it's a utility easement, drainage easement. So I just want to point out, if this subdivision goes in, regardless of it's 2-story homes or single-story homes, there's going to be a wall at the back end of those lots. There's also a wall at the back end of the lots on Woodrose. That's going to leave a 7.5-foot weed grower, no man's land space behind there. So I would encourage you to look at that. Maybe the answer is to increase that easement. It's a private easement. I don't know how the folks in Woodrose get back there to maintain anything. I don't know why the city allowed that to happen in the first place, but it could be an issue in the future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker. John Reuter, did I get that right?
My name is John Reuter. I live at 702 North Janal Circle. It's at the very corner right there by lot 12 and 13. I would be, my house is catty corner to the intersection of those alleys right there. So that's my house. We bought that in 1999. We've raised our kids there. It's been a great backyard, very accessible. We have a 6-foot wall back there, but because something I want to bring to your attention is the elevation of this property is because at the new proposed cul-de-sac, that's probably about 15 feet higher than my lot. And that's the high point of that property. And so if you have even just 5 foot or 6 foot wall along the west side, that whole property is elevated already. So they're going to be got clear vision of into those backyards all along that east side of Janal Circle homes there. So, and I think it's been mentioned, the integrity of the community, of the neighborhood. And I think it's been well stated, the value that we all have for the integrity of this with the low density or the R1 zoning. The Rosewater was vacant for many years. They developed that very nicely, and it seemed to have added value to the neighborhood. And the SR lots to the north have always been well-valued properties. And I think that goes to the uniqueness of Tucson and the value and the integrity of Tucson. And so my concern is the precedent that could be set by allowing this SR property to be zoned R2, because there's another empty lot just on the other side of Woodrose there. And then all those other properties are SR. And I believe the 2 stories that have been mentioned at the corner near the veterinary clinic was probably an SR lot at one time, and they crammed a lot of homes into that. So I think preserving the integrity of this neighborhood as it is precedent. I mean, I don't want to see that precedent devalued in any way. I don't fault Mr. Murdoch for wanting to sell his property. It's been in his family a long time. It's his retirement plan. Like many of us, this is our retirement plan. I'm a remodeler. I've remodeled my house. That's where I plan to gain my retirement strategy, is from what I can do with my home. So I don't want to see it devalued in any way by multiple lots like that. In reference to traffic, Igo is a very busy street. As the city's developed that intersection at Igo and Speedway, it's got a pedestrian walkway there, and to turn left and go west on that is nearly impossible in the morning, just due to the school traffic, apartment traffic, and everything like that. I just really appreciate the time and what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Greg Walker.
Name is Greg Walker. I live at 9320 East Rosewood. It's the other 5-acre plot on the street. Been there for 70 years. You've had some very good speakers with some very good information, so I won't talk long. I oppose this R2 development. I believe it'll cause a lot of problems with traffic and various other extra people things, as well as the occasional kids coming along my house and think it's a park because it's open land. And so I am opposing this. However, going to the R1, which is consistent with the other properties that we've not wanted to come in and develop, but it's progress. But I would certainly like to see it limited to 18 homes, not this 20 and all that. And as far as the other details, well, that's for other people to decide. Thank you.
Jill Summits.
Good evening. My name is Jill Summits. I live at 9231 East Rosewood Street, which is directly across from the parcel. I am speaking here tonight because these proposed changes are permanent, and they will affect many people, as you can see from the people who attended tonight. Once the land is rezoned and the homes are built, we can't undo this decision. So it needs to be right. And I am not opposed to rezoning this land. It just needs to fit with the rest of the neighborhood. R2 zoning in this location does not align with the Tucson planning goals for protecting low-density areas. And I just don't see how it benefits the neighborhood. Based on my research, rezoning this parcel to R2 would create an island of high-density zoning or spot zoning. We see this all over Tucson. But that sets a troubling precedent for otherwise stable neighborhoods. For example, this proposal would increase the number of homes from 20 to 25. So what does that mean? 8 to 15 additional people? 8 to 10 more cars? Estimated 40 to 50 more vehicle trips per day. And with that comes increased noise, more lighting, greater demands on utilities, reduced privacy, views. And I want to add that this particular square mile quadrant is one of the lowest crime areas in Tucson. And I value that. And I wonder if it's because we have stable, low density zoning that's homogeneous. In addition, if you haven't been to this parcel, it is not flat, as it's been pointed out. It slopes significantly downward towards Rosewood Street. And the proposed detention basins could become collection points for not just mosquitoes, but debris, which I understand the city will not be maintaining. So who maintains that? That's a concern I have. I believe that zoning decisions should balance private benefit with public interest. And in this case, rezoning to R2 primarily increases private financial return while creating long-term compatibility and precedent risks for this neighborhood. And for these reasons, I respectfully ask that you not rezone it to R2, but stay with the R1. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the speakers that I have. Is there anyone else who hasn't signed up who wants to speak? Okay,